all you Heroes fans. Welcome to the Primatech Files. I am one of your hosts, Lilith.
I'm Ricky. How's it going?
So, this is basically just kind of a meet your host deal, and we might hopefully get into the differences between the unaired pilot and the pilot. They had some pretty cool stuff for season 1 of Heroes.
Yeah, they had a lot of stuff. All the extras that they came along with and stuff. So yeah.
We'll start with Comic-Con 2006, I guess, is where we should probably start. That's when they made a episode for it. It was 72 minutes long and some change. And I was actually there and I did see it. And so I was kind of shocked when I was like, obviously I know they had to trim it, but it was like they completely took out characters, added new ones. And then some of the stuff was the exact same. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I was watching I just had a quick peek through it today, and they even completely recast people. Parkman's wife was completely different, and it was weird.
I thought that it was a really bold choice because at that point, Heroes debuted September 25th, 2006, and that's just 5 years after 9/11. And the original pilot was still dealing with the fallout of September 11th and all this other stuff. I'm like, wow, on NBC at 8 o'clock, really?
I know, and it wasn't just that, it was the kind of backstory that they had given him as well. It was kind of it wasn't like he was truly a bad guy. He had a reason for it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I was just like, that was kind of brave and bold. Everybody kind of was whispering that throughout Comic-Con, and so I was like, yeah, it makes sense that they would change it. But I actually liked the unaired pilot a lot better, with the exception of Sylar.
The whole thing was just kind of a bit too down for me. There was a lot of the stuff that got trimmed out was, I thought, kind of, they made it a bit better, for me personally anyway, because it was just there was Isaac cutting off his hands and...
But then I guess they kind of made up for it with the graphic novel, the first one, Monsters, that they put out, because that's the in-between time. We see the guy with the horn-rimmed glasses following Mohinder. We kind of get some more background on the Petrellis.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, at least Monsters anyway was just kind of, it was weird because it was the first kind of episode. It was the first issue, but it was more about someone without powers, as opposed to, especially with a show that's about people with powers, it was kind of just about the ordinary man, the kind of everyman just going through his life and just trying to put pieces together.
Why were you drawn to Heroes? I know for two reasons for me specifically, but what about you?
Well, I was just looking for something that was kind of comic booky, or at least I think the whole thing about powers kind of drew me to it. And it wasn't really until I was just giving it a go and just watching through it, and it wasn't until about episode 4 where I kind of became invested, and then ever since then it just kind of took over. Seeing Future Hero, basically, as soon as he turned up, I was kind of, I was invested. But everything before that was kind of, just watching. I wasn't really paying attention until episode 4, and then I had to go back and just watch everything again and start picking things up. So yeah. How about you?
I love everything about Lost, but it was around about the time, beginning of season 3, I would say, of Lost, where it was just okay, we're never going to get these answers. I still like to watch it. I still like to be on the theory boards, but I need something that's fun, upbeat, not so depressing. And I really love comic books, and so they had a comic book tie-in, and I'm like, okay, it's NBC, it's a little sci-fi. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled and we can get at least 2-3 seasons out of it. I'm always leery of NBC and sci-fi shows. It just usually never ends well.
I think also for me it was just everyone was everywhere. It wasn't self-contained into one city. Everyone was kind of all over the place, and they kind of started to, as the season went on, they kind of started to move towards each other. And I think that also, because it kind of put everyone in their own little bubble, but everyone was kind of connected in a way as well. So yeah. Also it was first kind of thing that I really remember that actually had anything extra that went to go with it, especially the online content, the webisodes that came out after a while and the graphic novels, and then I think they went into the iStories as well. So yeah, it was the first TV program that I really remember just scouring the internet for, trying to find stuff and coming across all these gold mines of extras, basically.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Well, Lost, see, this is the thing, I'll say J.J. Abrams really kind of started the interactive TV, model, because it started kind of with Alias, with the game, and then he really brought it in with Lost, and then Heroes just took off with it. So yeah, I will say Heroes just totally kind of changed the game with how much they put out.
Yeah, because it was weekly as well. It was everything to go along with the show. Like they had the graphic novel every week, and then I can't remember when they actually started the webisodes.
Heroes
Yeah,
360, which turned into Heroes Evolution, and then Heroes Revealed. Like every season was like getting ready, revved up for the season. That was like the best part of really of the season for me. Is like, oh my god, what's coming? What's coming? And everybody doing theories.
I remember they had like the choose your own hero thing as well at one point, which was basically who was going to be the next webisode guy or webisode person, and they gave you like the options of like the people who they thought they were going to choose, and it was all done in comic book form, and with like little like animations, and I can't remember. All I remember it was a soccer guy who won.
Like I'm a fan of Tim Crean. Obviously, I love Crossing Jordan. It was one of those kooky procedurals. So I was like, in for a penny, in for a pound with this guy.
To be honest, I'd never really heard of him before that. Like I watched Touch afterwards.
Which you can see the inspiration for though out of this, because I always thought that this show was very much Red String of Fate kind of thing. When we open in this global scale and we kind of learn, the tagline for season one: "Save the cheerleader, save the world." Were you familiar with any of the actors from the show? Because I know I was like, it was at least three of them that I was.
I don't. Oh, I didn't really know any of them beforehand. No. Apart from as it got on, obviously you had like all the guest stars. I knew most of them, but no, I'm not any of the. Maybe Grunberg. I think I knew him, but I think that might have been after the fact. Actually, yeah, I don't think I knew any of them.
Yeah, I knew Mila Ventimiglia because I'm a Gilmore Girl like fanatic, and he played Luke's son. Oh no, nephew Jesse. And I knew Micah Sanders because he played this little kid on the Damon Wayne show about his family. And then I knew Ali Larder because I'm a huge Final Destination fan. So
Yeah, no clue.
and Adrian Pasdar, he always plays a jerk. He played like one of the last boyfriends that Amy Brennan's character had on Judging Amy. And before that, it was like a early 1990 show called Prophet, where he was just a complete bastard. He was built to be the anti-hero, so like he's totally typecast. I don't think I've ever seen him in a good guy role ever.
They tried their best in this after a while, didn't they? But then every now and then they just bring him straight back to straight up villainy.
But yeah, Greg Grunberg, as a person who is just like what used to be a complete J.J. Abrams like disciple,
Yeah.
he is always in something that J.J. does. So I was very familiar with him. He was in Fringe for a minute, and then he was also the pilot on Lost, the first pilot. So let's talk about, I guess, the pilot that actually aired.
Sorry, it wasn't even like they had just one pilot. They had like three eventually, didn't they? It was like the one they kind of showed at Comic Con, then that got trimmed down a bit, and then it eventually came to what they aired.
Yeah, you can actually find the original script because there's actually, how the first one that they showed at Comic Con, it has like 3 sections.
Yeah, yeah.
It actually had 4 sections in the original script. So he was like, he had lofty goals for this show.
Seems it. Friggin' 2 hours would have been premiere, yeah.
I think that would have been cool. Like I'm kind of always a fan of when a show has a 2-hour like series premiere. It just helps me get more immersed into the world.
It also doesn't feel like they're rushing into it. They're kind of giving it a bit of time to get to know the characters as opposed to just having to go with generic stock characters all the time. It kind of gives them a kind of, I don't know, a kind of extra layer, I guess. I don't know.
It also makes me feel like the network's more invested. They like to make it an event, And NBC was not doing like event TV besides the Olympics at that time. So it was just like, that would have really actually probably, I mean, they had a huge number watch this pilot. It was like over 14 million. So, and that was the highest they ever got. But that's to be expected. Like when the episode opened, like I thought they were at least going to get rid of like the the Star Wars scrolling text, but they didn't, and I was like, that's so like I like it. It makes it feel more comic book-esque, but at that time comic books weren't really still that mainstream. Like it was still kind of nerdy.
The only thing that was kind of out then that I can really remember is probably Smallville, but that kind of was, and it was pushed on like the CW, so they were going to keep it going because it got a decent enough rating. But yeah, that was the only kind of comic book show that I really remember before this. But I'm kind of old, so my memory's going.
So that was like the one thing I was like, if I was gonna, like me personally as a writer, if I was gonna change something, that definitely would have changed it. It just kept the voiceover. It made that a voiceover. I really did love Sinel's voiceovers. Like it just gave it a little more class.
Yeah. until his accent started to go.
Because he's American.
But yeah, there was so many things in the pilot that kind of were hinted at that went throughout the whole season. And I think that's what, it's one of those things that you get on a rewatch. It's like, oh, well, there was a talk between Sandra and Claire where she's telling Claire that, you're special. And then as soon as that happened, I was kind of like, well, this is exactly the thing that Siler and his mum had. And look how that turned out. But yeah.
I do like the storytelling level of it. Like, the smaller arcs, and they actually gave you answers. Like, even in the first kind of episode, like, you see like all these people and we're like, okay, you already know, like at the end of it with Isaac's painting and all that, okay, we're working towards a goal, we have to stop it.
Yeah. It was one of those things. Yeah, it's laid out where it was, like, what the kind of big event was going to be from the beginning, and you just had to work through it as you went through, watching episode by episode. And everyone had like their own little things like at the beginning, and that was really good because everyone's off in their own little bubble and you can kind of follow the story without them mixing and merging until the end, and then it kind of makes a bigger kind of tapestry, I guess, is for lack of a better word.
Who was your favorite character?
Oh man, it was obviously Hero.
Me too, because he was happy to have powers, and that's actually, he's the last character that he created because Tim Curry's wife was like, hey man, everybody's kind of miserable.
It made sense that he was a comic book fan, and as soon as he got powers, he was like totally into it, and he followed like the code, like, powers come with great responsibility, all that kind. He basically said that without saying that.
But having Ando was like extra good too, because that's like to counter his nonsense.
If I got powers, he's exactly how I would be. I would like just embrace it and go with it. I wouldn't be like the rest of them who were kind of, they were kind of a bit like Claire was like, my life is over kind of deal. And Peter was like getting there. He was getting to the point where he was, he wanted powers and he wanted to be special. Like he said it quite a couple of times, like, what would, like, is everyone unique? Like with that conversation with Mahinder in the cab. And he was kind of heading towards there, but he still was like, he was still kind of holding back by it.
It was a lot of mind fracks in this series, definitely, but like at least they made sense. Like there's sometimes people just do twist for twist, and I was just glad that I'll say later on in season 2 they definitely got into twist for the sake of twist, but season 1 was pretty straightforward.
And it seemed like, well, the original plan was it to be different every season, wasn't it? So it seemed like they had everything kind of mapped out and they knew where they were going with everything, as opposed to just writing it on the whim. Because, in the second season, they brought everyone back, which I think the original plan was they weren't going to. It was just going to be a completely new set of characters, wasn't it?
But I think what actually did end up hurting this series is that they got afraid to kill people off after a while. Because Peter, seriously, at the end of the day, Peter could have been gone in season 3.
Yeah. I also think the main problem was some of their powers were just a bit too much. Like, after a while, Hero's time travel / teleportation thing was a bit... In terms of, like, role-play games, he was a bit, like, overpowered. Like, especially him and Peter, until, like, Peter's powers got rebooted. They pretty much were just, the most powerful people. So, because their powers were just so much, it just kind of made it hard for them to go anywhere with them, Until
they had to reset them, and that was just so frustrating. Like, why did they have to lose their powers? You could have just depowered them just a little.
Okay, what else about the pilot happens?
No, like we literally they set everything up kind of perfectly. Do you know what I mean? Like we kind of open with, Mohinder following his father's footsteps. And I do think that Mohinder is like one of the best evolved characters at the end of the series. Like, he kind of comes full circle, with the Shanti virus and all this other stuff. And he really kind of gets to come out of his father's shadow where nobody else really gets that.
Yeah, he's the one who's been seeking his father's approval for like the whole thing. And, he says it himself. He's got to go to New York. He's got to, finish his father's work, even though, his father he feels that his father never gave him enough appreciation. And at the end of it, he does do better than his father.
And I loved when he finally got to hook up with Greg Grunberg's character, and they take care of Molly. Like, I thought that was really
I remember watching that, and I thought it was a bit weird, but yeah, it was all right.
You'll learn this about me. I love slash fic. I love to write it. I love to read it. So that was like, oh snaps! They just set that up perfectly. They got a kid together now. Do you know any fun trivia about this, the pilot or the unaired one?
Yeah, I got a couple of bits. Apparently, Hero was the Yatar wasn't meant to be Yatar. It was meant to be Bonsai, or to begin with, apparently, until Masi Oka was just like, that actually means like little tree, and yeah, so he just said, I'll change it to Yatar, and that's.
Well, he let him write all the Japanese dialogue as the series went on, and he would write messages to his mom. I remember watching that interview on, I think it was Letterman. He was so adorable.
Apparently, the Hero reference to issue 143 wasn't correct at one point. I don't know.
I yelled at the screen when I said that.
And I like there was like little nods, like little, what I would see as Easter eggs, but, I don't know if they were meant that way. There was the two guys in Japan.
Oh, the karaoke?
Yeah. The two I Want It That Way, that I think the Backdawn Boys, I think they're called. There was
that was a parody of it. I was just like, what? Why are they singing it in English?
Yeah, I know. And then was obviously Mr. Muggles, which for me was just like a Harry Potter reference to like non-human, like non-superpowered people, which I thought was kind of like a nice little thing. And I was watching it, and it wasn't until I read this little trivia piece that I didn't like. I saw it, but the HRG in the back of the cab talking to Suresh and just being like, Suresh, that's kind of like a Smith or Anderson, and it just felt so Matrix at that point.
Oh, I think my favorite thing about this, when Claire reaches her hand into the garbage disposal, the unit that it's Emerson, and they filed a product disparagement lawsuit, and they had to remove the product name from the DVD.
Yeah. What else? I think that is all I have. Let me just have a look. Yeah, that's all I've got.
And then also the titles of these episodes, at least for season 1, they all have these really cool literary references.
Yeah. Was the first episode Genesis, or was the whole volume Genesis? I can't.
The title of the episode is Genesis, but the whole volume, later on, I think they went back and renamed the whole volume Genesis, because I did like In His Own Image, though, just for the connotation, because there's this evolutionary process, and, it's the next step in evolution, and is it, and then you get all these scientific conundrums about, evolution, and should you play God yourself, which we kind of learned out that the company kind of was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I completely forgot Parkman's not in the episode at all, is he? He's completely cut out, at least from the Genesis version. They kind of cut him out, and he doesn't appear really until the second. Yeah, I think that's obviously because they had to change the storyline for him.
And that was an interesting storyline for him, the fact that he knew the Terrors from the unaired pilot. Tim had to say it in an interview, but they'd known each other 15 years previous, and they were roommates. And because I was like, wait, what? They know each other? And then, I was like, then I saw it on TV, and I'm like, oh, they totally cut this out. Okay.
Yeah. I know, what else did I learn? I learned that Sylar, the original Sylar, was meant to be a bit Nosferatu-like, or something like that. He was meant to be a bit more deformed and a bit monsterish looking, which I thought is it's a good thing they didn't go with that, because I think that would have been a bit too much.
Yeah, they totally cut that out of the pilot too. I was bummed. And we don't even learn about actual Sylar for a while. So I was just like, okay, is this totally gone? Or are we gonna come back to it? We finally came back to it. It was Zachary Quinto, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. Those eyebrows. Yeah.
And when he went on to play Spock, I was just like, yeah, I can see that.
Especially with all the Star Trek references during the show as well. It was genius. But yeah. What else? They had a lot of stuff that ran throughout, that started in this episode, that kind of ran throughout, the whole mythology. Sorry, I just did air quotes, but obviously you can't see it. They had the eclipse going on throughout, which was a big thing, obviously. The mentions of cockroaches, and even there was a point where I think Suresh just even stamped someone after talking about how great they are in his lecture earlier or something like that. The paintings which come up all the time, and I think all the paintings were like they came true at least for the most point as well, didn't they?
Yep, because that was Isaac's power, and I was always bitter about them. He being the only character that actually stayed dead. And I remember they actually had to go on CNN and make this announcement that he was staying dead. Like it was like they had that cast. I don't know if you remember that cast interview on Larry King. It was one of like his last big interviews or whatever. And they were like, "Yeah, he has to stay dead. It's all a part of the story." And I'm like, "Okay."
Oh yeah, I remember watching the pilot and thinking that something was going to go on with Simone and Peter as well, and they kind of got into it. And then she was just gone. I remember just feeling not unsatisfied by her going, but just, it just felt a bit abrupt, and it felt like something behind the scenes was going on with that. But yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, and Ninth Wonders, which popped up a lot in the first.
Yeah, because that's the comic book. Like, yeah, we get Micah reading that in this episode. I forget which one it is exactly, though.
And that pops up as well during the episode a couple of times. I think it's like one of Hero's screensavers, or maybe Ando's screensaver. And yeah, I remember
I think
that.
it pops up in every single episode, if I remember right.
Yeah, and I think from the next episode, it's the Helix that kind of starts popping up. Not in every episode, but it starts popping up a lot more.
So, like, if you had to grade it, like the unaired pilot and then the regular pilot, what would you give them?
I'd probably give the unaired pilot a C. I'd go with a C, and then I'd probably go with like a C plus, like B minus for the actual pilot, just because I don't know, it wasn't striking enough to me. Like, it was one of those shows that I thought would be, if I hadn't watched the second and third, I would have just binge watched them after the fact it was done. But for some reason, there wasn't really much more superhero stuff going on, so I just ended up having to watch them after that. But yeah, I just preferred the actual episode, the Genesis episode, because it just wasn't as dark. I like the Flash, so I like my superheroes a bit more happy and cappy.
I like the Flash too. For me, I would say I gave the unaired pilot about a B minus, and then I gave the one that eventually went to air. It was a B plus. I like that they were laying the groundwork, that it felt like on a large scale, very global. It was a very diversified cast, which was something that just wasn't on TV at the time either. And like I would have probably gave it an A if Hiro wasn't such like a stereotypical Japanese fanboy. It drove me crazy.
Oh no, but that's what I liked. I thought it was great. So do you remember where you were when you saw the Heroes Reborn stuff? So did you manage to see it live? Like, were you watching the Olympics at the time the first trailer came out, or?
Yep, I was.
See, I didn't know about it until the next day when it blew up on Twitter. So yeah.
It was crazy. I'm like, NBC is so desperate that they're going back into a show that they canceled too early.
And it was because they were originally there was talk about Heroes going to
making a movie. They had a whole bunch of stuff planned.
Yeah, they had loads. I think at one point they were going to go on MSN or something like that, or like they were going to continue the story on there, and then obviously NBC were just like, no, we want this. Heroes are big business now. Time difference. I always find out things late.
Oh yeah. Did you get to see the trailer for it, or the Super Bowl trailer live? I don't know how guys across the pond really care about our stupid little wrong kind of football.
No, no, I didn't. But yeah, I saw it the next day, and I was quite excited. I think it was the right amount of time to give it. I don't think they could have given it any more. And I don't know. It just gave me like, I was kind of thinking, like, ever since I've seen it, I've been like, well, I think this is going to happen. I've kind of been theory crafting from that. But yeah, seeing Zach Levy in it, yeah.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a big deal in this one. And I like Chuck, don't get me wrong. I was just like, just give me my Snell back. Like, ever since he got killed off on Beauty and the Beast, I was just like, I don't know, man. He needs something to do. I need to see him on my TV. Literally, he came at a time where I was getting ready to quit watching Beauty and the Beast, and then he popped up, and I'm like, oh, he classes up the joint. Okay, Beauty and the Beast, you get this pass now.
So, who else? So, what have you heard about who's coming back? Because I've heard that Zach Quinto's definitely not coming back,
Yeah.
and who else? I'm guessing Hayden's not going to come back.
Pantier's not.
Milo said something about like I saw him at a Comic-Con where he found out about Heroes coming back, like everyone else, just seeing the trailer apparently, and he doesn't. He says he kind of just wants to carry on going forward. So
He's
I don't
so
think
busy now. He's got the arc on Gotham coming up, and then after that, he's got this summer show on
the Whispers, right? The Whispers. That looks freaking scary. Yeah.
And he could always be an Adam Levine stand-in. I'm just saying, he ain't hurt for work.
Greg's been said that he would come back if asked. He said something about, I think on Twitter, he said he's talked to Tim about it, but he hasn't got the call yet. So what do you think is going to happen with Heroes? What do you think is going to happen in Reborn? What do you want to happen in Reborn?
I don't know. Like, I was always a fan of them doing Heroes origin. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted, like, like I said, I love that first part of the second season where he's back in, feudal Japan and doing all this other stuff and just learning the history of the things that, because there were others that had superpowers before them and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like they're doing that.
No. I think they're going to continue after season 4 where I hope they don't brush that whole Claire thing under the rug, and heroes, like people with powers, are known to the world now. I hope they go with that. And I don't know, I think I see HRG being like the good guy for most of the season, at least just kind of being that future version of him where he's going around trying to help people. And I kind of see Zach Levi as the bad guy. That's how I see it from that trailer. But yeah,
that trailer was so mysterious. like it's good that they're not telling people too much about it, though. You know what I mean? Let the buzz build, make people want to watch it, just so they can say, "I knew it was going to be crap. I'm not watching the next episode. You get this mulligan, and I'm gone."
Yeah. And yeah, the hero's origin stuff was pretty, like the idea behind it was pretty cool. What they were going to give it. Are you talking about the actual origins of the heroes or the Heroes Origins TV show?
The TV show. And I like the origin stuff that they were working on too as well.
Because I started tweeting at the guys who said that they were going to do it, or at least rumored to be doing it, and I got a couple of replies for some actually pretty cool. Like Eli Roth basically didn't say what he was going to do. He just said he might do it again, but yeah, I got a reply for him, which was pretty cool. And John August, he had one that was going to be called Rehab, and apparently it was going to be about a charismatic girl next door gone wild, faces intervention and kills all. That was going to be his story. The one I was really looking forward to was Kevin Smith's one, if he ever was going to do it. But yeah, I'm a fan, so.
Me too. I have no idea what they're going to do with this one. I'm excited. It's 13 episodes. Hopefully it gets picked up for more if it's good.
I think they could just go with a 13 episode anyway, and just like at least 13. It's like with Sleepy Hollow for me anyway. 13 episodes is a good number, and also hopefully the budget gives them enough time to kind of do decent powers, like to have decent powers, and most importantly have like decent fights with powers. I think that's. Yes.
Because I was watching the pilot and I'm just like, where her ribs are like poking out, and then like when Peter's trying to fly with Nathan, it was so like, what?
Yeah, but they were saving everything for boiling cups of water. Yeah, that was a nice little thing as well. I didn't spot that until afterwards, but in one of the pilots, there's Isaac is blackwashing out a painting. Like when Simone comes in and finds him, and he's blackwashing a painting, and it's the hand with the water bubbling, which was obviously, I think the guy's name was Amid, the terrorist guy. That was a nice little thing that came in, but yeah.
Well, I think that kind of covers it for this particular episode. Do you want to give them our social media where they can find us?
Yeah, so if you guys want to I think we're probably going to be doing the next couple of. Then next week we'll probably do episode 2, maybe episode 3. But if you want, tweet at us at Primatech Files. That's if you're a Heroes fan, you'll know how to spell all that. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter again at Ricky J Diaz. That's RICKYJDIAZ or Z, as you Americans say. Yes.
Oh no, wait, do we have a Facebook page yet?
Oh, not yet. No,
Okay.
I haven't got that far. No.
You guys can follow me where I need the most social media at flashpoint_SMG.
Go.
I live tweet the Flash for the Flashpoint podcast every Tuesday night. It's one of my favorite shows of the season and probably going to end up ever because they just make my jaw drop.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, and if you get tweeted at by Primatech Files, it's more than likely me because I can't get enough of Heroes. But I'm sure when it starts up, Heroes Reborn, when Heroes Reborn starts up, Lilith's going to take over and live tweet the hell out of it. From
Yeah,
the
because I don't
account.
think you're going to be staying up all night to when you have work in the morning.
I don't know. I might have to take the day off and just watch stay up and watch that episode.
Well, whenever you need me to, just let me know.
Exactly. Cool.
Do we have an email?
Yes, it is primatechfiles@gmail.com.
Be sure to send us your thoughts about the pilot, the unaired pilot, who your favorite characters are, what your hopes for Heroes Reborn is, and all that good stuff, and we will read it right here on the podcast.
Sweet.
So, until next week.